Hello and welcome, Dota fans, to another episode of FletchDota, your one-stop shop for anything and everything Dota 2 related. I am, of course, Fletch, your purveyor of infinite wisdom throughout this journey that many refer to as the metagame. How's everybody doing tonight? I am doing amazing. We just got done with an excellent weekend full of ESL. We saw some excellent Dota leading into TI4. This is what we were hyped for, I think, going into Friday. We were waiting to see how all of these teams were going to perform, and I think they gave us a pretty clear picture right off the bat. Everyone's extremely strong right now. I didn't see anybody that I was like, man, I wish I could have seen more. Although, of course, there was some people that were disappointed. You know, they did go home in the first round. Maybe not necessarily home. I think they all hung out at ESL, but they were knocked out in the first round. You know, most notably... Well, does it really count? I'm not entirely sure. So, EG and Navi was technically first round, but it was the second day. So, what do you do? What do you do? We call it, we will call that first round, though. It technically was the first round, even though it happened on round 2 day with the grand finals and everything else, which was quite impressive. EG, I think, played more games than anybody else that day. Everyone else just played their semifinals and their finals. EG actually had to start off the morning playing a best of 3 against Navi. Then they had to play a best of 3 against, who was it? Fnatic, I think, was their next round. Let me go ahead and check the brackets to be sure. I got my ESL brackets here somewhere. Let's tab through until I find them. I've got like, oh, here we go. ESL 1 Frankfurt. Here's the brackets. EG, yep, Fnatic. And the worst part was, it was a 2-1 victory over Fnatic. You know, that's great for us Dota fans. That's terrible for EG. And then they had a 3-game series against IG, where their third game is like, at that point, IG actually had a little bit of a press release for those of you who didn't know before the game. They said, okay, guys, up until now, we've had training weights on, and we've only showed you 20% of our Dota capability. But for ESL, in the final Grand Finals game in this best of 3 series, we are going to show you 50% of what IG is capable of. And thus happened 22-0, the dream, the final victory of IG over EG, and so went the dreams of this North American fanboy back home to where he came from. Of course, Arteezy, probably not too upset. Assuming people aren't trolling me, he did hit 18, so he leveled up. Of course, hitting 25 is the max level, and then you hit 26 like me, and you're done with Dota. And I think that's what happened to Fear too, right? He hit 26, and then it was like, nope, only up to 25 in Dota. So there you have it. That's why Fear's not playing at TI4. You thought it was just an elbow injury, but really, you can't have level 26 heroes in the game, or you break the game. So Arteezy level 18, he's pretty solid as a carry at this point. He's able to play his late game, and we'll see how well he does in the actual TI4 competition. I really respect the fact. Now, a lot of people looked at that and they were like, what is EG drafting? They got outdrafted. But I respect the fact that they tried out something that you wouldn't think of as an EG lineup in a key game at the end of a long day versus IG, one of the top teams in the world right now, who is actually probably one of the favorites to win TI4. That is something that EG did, which I think is going to be key for them going into the rest of their boot camp before TI4 actually begins. Having this knowledge, trying these new things out, and being able to do it in a grand final environment, even though it was only best of 3. The fact that they played 8 games that day, that's a full international experience for EG. I don't think it'll get any more stressful than it was at ESL 1 for them. So definitely positive environment for them to go into TI4 from. Even though they did come in second place, that's still second under IG. And if you look at second place at TI4, I mean, how much is that going to be? That's over the prize pool of TI1, 2, and possibly 3, I think at this point. Actually, speaking of that though, we will go ahead and cover the TI4 prize pool 2014. Do they call it TI4 or do they call it the International 2014? I'm not too sure on it. I think they might just be calling it the International, and then we're the ones throwing 2, 3, and 4 behind it. It really feels like the International is just going to be a yearly thing, and then you mark it by the year that it happened rather than a numerical value. So the International, the 2014 International. is what we're coming up on. The prize pool is actually at $10.1 million, actually 125. So what is that, like eighth? Is that right? About an eighth of the way to $11 million from 10 million. And yeah, so it took us forever to hit 10 million. It took, like, what were we? We were 9.98 for like 2 days, and then we finally hit 10 million, and now we instantly get another 100,000. What is wrong with people? We've already hit the final stretch goal. Why couldn't you do this going to 10 million? You had me waiting for so many days, all disappointed, like, oh, it's gonna hit 10 million tomorrow. Nope. And all these news sites were like, oh, TI4 hit 10 million. They all said it early because they tried to jump the gun and be a day ahead and be like, oh, it's gonna hit it overnight, so we'll go ahead and release. And everyone's like, oh, it's 10 million? No, it only says 9. How did the prize pool go down? I saw on this news site it was 10 million already. And it wasn't, because they jumped the gun. But I waited. I read the number off for you every single day. And we finally hit 10 million on Friday, I think it was. And here we are on Monday after first full week of FletchDota. We are finally in week 2. We've done 5 episodes and we're on episode 6, and we're past 10 million now by a whole $100,000. And I wonder if ESL has a large part to play for this, hyping people up after all these big matches. They know international is only going to be more intense because there's more teams, more games, and a much longer event at a bigger venue. So we are excited to see TI4, and not only are we excited about it, but I've noticed that a very familiar face to most of you who were around for TI3 has actually been getting hyped up for Dota 2 as well. Casey Atchison, you all know her as the host of TI3. If you did happen to see any of those games, she was the Fox News anchor from the local Fox News affiliate there in Seattle. She was the host of TI3, and she had all sorts of fun hosting the international event for us. She's coming back for TI4, and she started playing Dota 2, guys. She said she was going to learn Dota 2, and here it is, tweeted out by Casey Atchison. It's a good idea to carry a town portal scroll. Good to know. Casey learns Dota. So she is working on her Dota skills, and she has learned that she must always carry a TP. So good job, Casey. Starting off already a neck above all of those low-level pub players who never have a teleport. You're getting dove at your tier 3 tower, and you still have tier 1s up, and you're like, guys, can anybody help me? And then the mid player's like, I'm coming, and you see him turn around and start walking towards your base. You're like, Is that really going to help? He travels, he kind of goes through the woods, farms a neutral camp for a little bit. He's coming down. Meanwhile, you're almost to the fountain as Ancient Apparition is just auto-attacking you down and chasing you. He's getting beat on the towers. He needs one more hit to kill him, and you die. He's casually strolling out of base. Mid finally arrives, picks up the kill, and goes, You did good. Well played. Too bad your team's a noob and they're feeding that bottom lane, but you still got the kill. So good job, mid. But Casey is not like that. She's going to carry town portal scrolls. She's going to jump in. She's going to save your life and get the gank instead. So great job from her. And something I noticed, somebody released an imager, and I couldn't help but bring this out tonight. Guys, TI4, there's a handful of players. Actually, this is quite a bit more than a handful. And I'm really impressed by this, that there's players that are consistently on a high level, on high teams, making it to the international. But there is a page of players who have been to all TI4s. And I'll go ahead and throw this up on the screen for you guys to look at. And as we casually scroll through it, I think you'll enjoy this. So starting out at the top, we got Universe. Now, I saw some people that were really upset Universe was on here because he was on the roster, but technically he didn't play any games. So don't be mad at Universe. He was there. He was on the roster and everything, and he was at TI1. Even if he didn't play any games at TI1, he was still there, guys. Give him a break. 1437, PieCat, Misery showing up on Mouse Sports. These guys are like an unstoppable duo. I think whatever team they end up on together always performs really well. And you see that right here. I mean, you have TI performances together the entire time. These guys have a deep intrinsic knowledge of Dota 2. And especially Misery. This guy's in-game captaining. If you haven't had a chance to hear him captain in-game, I would certainly look for that. That's amazing. We got God. We got Ars Art coming across. He's actually in Virtus Pro. He's returning in VP, going for that wildcard slot with God. Dindy, of course. Look at this big Navi wall right here. These players just keep coming back for more. First place, second place, second place, second place. And who knows what they'll get at a TI4. Oops, I said second place right here. Nope, it's not guaranteed yet. There's a lot of strong teams, and coming out of ESL, I've got some interesting things to talk about on how Na'Vi is going to place. But Kuroki, Gosu Gamers, then Mousesports, and now for Na'Vi for TI3 and 4. We've got, of course, a wall of Chinese players. Now we've got DDC, Zhao 8, now in Newbie. MMY and DK for the past 3 years. IG for Ferrari 430. He is pretty much like the cornerstone of IG, and what an unstoppable player he was at ESL this weekend. Yao for LGD, DD as well. LGD is an interesting one. They keep getting... Oh, I already scrolled down. I didn't mean to scroll down this far, but there you go, guys. Cinderin. Next Evolution, MTW, Mousesports, and Cinderin. I couldn't help but post it just because I got down to the bottom and I pretty much burst out laughing. But lots of players that are just coming back, so pretty interesting to see. And of course, Cinderin. I love Cinderin. Cinderin is probably my favorite Dota 2 personality. As a caster, I really like his experience and the insight that he has coming into Dota 2, and the insight he can give you into what's going on in the game and what people are experiencing. I think that's not something many players can actually provide you. But Cinderin can really vocalize what exactly is going on in people's heads, what kind of item choices they're doing and why, and at a level that not many players can do. I think I've said this many times, but pretty much I consider Cinderin, Ice, and Fear to be the most knowledgeable people in Dota 2. Now, this has nothing to do with execution level, although Ice probably has the highest level of execution I've ever seen from a player. That guy is absolutely amazing. So not only does he know, he goes, guys, I need to eat 1 tango and I will live with 4 HP, but they'll think they can kill me, so they'll tower dive me, and then I'm going to do this and they're both going to die and I'll get a double kill with 4 HP left because I ate that tango. And then it happens and you're like, what? He's calculating at a next level. Like, here's all Dota players and they're just high skilled, and then here's Ice. He's calculating and high skilled, and it's like, how do you do this, Ice? I don't even know how he manages it, but the guy is amazing. And enough of the Ice fanboyism. He is, of course, my favorite player in Dota 2. I actually have him marked in my compendium as my favorite player. Love Ice. Never forget Kuroki when talking about knowledge. The problem is I haven't actually heard Kuroki talk about Dota 2. So these are just the 3 that I know off the top of my head. I'm sure there's other ones, but these are the 3 that are actually able to vocalize what they know in the fact that I've heard it and experienced it. Cinderin most notably because he casts Ice on his stream. If you ever watch an Ice stream, which is really rare now that he's in China with his team all the time, he doesn't get to stream. He literally vocalizes every single thing that's going on. And now, speaking of Ice though, I do have a lot of interviews that come out, guys. For those of you who haven't had a chance, there are like 100 YouTube interviews that happened this weekend, most notably on joindota.com. If you stop by Join Dota, the whole front page of news is video interviews with all of these players. I definitely suggest getting your fill of these interviews. They're like 3 or 4 minutes long, so they're nice, easy watches that you can just listen to. You don't even need to watch the players. You can just listen to the communication between the interviewer and the interviewee while you're working on something else. So definitely throw those up in your second monitor or in the background if you got it. And listen to those interviews. There's lots of really good interviews with the top players that were actually at ESL. So I was really proud that all of these news sites took the opportunity while being at ESL to not waste their time. Now, speaking of Ice though, there was a DK interview after the V Games Tournament Grand Final where they talked to Burning. And one specific thing that stood out, they asked him, they're like, why has Ice recently started buying Dagon on Elder Titan? People have been commenting on it game again, and they're like, is Ice trolling? He's built a Dagon. What's going on? And then it pays off. He bursts somebody down that needs to be burst down before they're able to participate in the team fight, and it's working out for him. And Burning's response is pretty much typical of how I view Ice's item decisions are flexible and free. He has his unique understanding of Elder Titan. And I would change that in my personal words. It would be he has his unique understanding of Dota 2. This guy is amazing when it comes to knowing what to do in Dota 2. And I'm
like, I'm always just confounded by how he is able to play Dota at this level. And you even saw it at TI3 in the 1v1 solo mid tournament. For those of you who didn't watch it, I would definitely suggest going and watching the grand finals of it, at least a standoff between Mushi and Ice Ice Ice. And you get Ice 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 on a role that he doesn't normally play. You don't think of Ice 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 as the mid hero, but he can play mid. And the thing is, you put him on Puck, a hero that's supposed to be Mushi's favorite, and then you watch what Ice 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 does with Puck. He knows Puck better than anyone in the game, and he doesn't even play Puck as one of his main heroes. I don't know how it's possible, but Ice 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 has managed it, and that's what makes him such a great player. And the fact that he is able to vocalize it for everyone watching is what makes it such a joy for me to watch him as a streamer when I do catch him online. And again, he hasn't been able to stream in quite a long time, which is kind of unfortunate. Along with that, though, we also have a nice little interview coming out from Dota 2P about Roshan and Aegis and a few other things that they want to talk about as they're going into TI4. We actually have Virtus Pro talking about a few different things. So who did they talk to? They talked to Ines, and they talked to him about going up into TI4. Your last game was against Midnight Pile Drivers on the 1/8 finals of Gigabyte Challenge, and the game turned out to be a loss for you. Tell us, was the loss related to the fact that you had 2 stand-ins? Of course, it's related to that, but it's also related to the fact that we had a team vacation recently, and we had absolutely no training. Now, one of the things I really don't like about Virtus Pro is how unstable they are when it comes to winning. They're able to beat a top team. Like, you see Virtus Pro explode and absolutely wreck somebody like Empire or Na'Vi, and then at the same time they can go into the next game and they lose to someone called Midnight Pile Drivers, who shouldn't even be a question of them winning. And in those kind of situations, I think it's really cool that they actually address that. They talk about how they're preparing for the wild card slot, and the fact that as wildcards that they want to be able to defeat people on a regular basis. They don't just want to be this unstable team that they're known for. So, like, Ines even says, yes, since the very beginning, our results have been pretty unstable. We were able to defeat top tier teams, but sometimes we lost to complete no-names. Despite that, during very important matches, we were able to get it all together. As T4 qualifiers showed, I think that we have got every chance of competing for the wild card and actually winning it, and at least we will try to do our best. And I think we've actually heard from CIS and a few of the other wildcard teams when asked what the toughest team will be. I think they've all actually said they're scared of Virtus Pro, because you honestly don't know what's going to come out of these Russians. They might come out there and just blow everyone out of the water and play at tier 1 level. They are capable of it on a skill level if you look at their individual player's skill. The problem is their team play and their inconsistency. So good luck to Virtus Pro going into TI4, and it's a cool little interview that I'll go ahead and throw over here just so you guys can see it. That's the Dota 2P article. I love Dota 2P. I don't know exactly how new the website is, but it's new for me. I found it within the last 2 weeks looking into this news show and trying to find sources for different news articles. And these guys have done a great job, and honestly, their website's pretty easy to navigate. So I've really hyped them up, I think, quite a bit over the course of my stream. And for rightfully so, I think they've earned it. I did talk a little bit about ESL, and then I got off on a tangent with Ice Ice Ice. And I want to go ahead and cover the ESL results for you guys before we get into some of the other news that happened over the weekend. Well, kind of at the end of Friday. And overflowing compendium update. Is this an update for pile of compendium rewards? Pudgeling Courier chat. Did they release new prize pool? What's it called? Stretch goals? Have they released new stretch goals with this update coming out from the overflowing compendium? This is literally just released because I was checking their blog right up till turning this stream on, and it looks like June 30th. So let me check if there's new prize goals, and I'll go ahead and name those if there are. I don't see any though. So if anybody hears of any new stretch goals for the TI4 prize pool, that would be pretty cool. I don't know if they're going to do any more though before TI4. I really don't. So either way, we've hit 10 million. That's a really nice goal to hit. And at the same time, it'd be nice for Valve to give us something else to shoot for, you know, so we can keep going. Maybe hit 15 million before the actual event. I mean, how many? We've got what? About 18 days before the actual event, I think. We'll see. We'll see what it does. But as ESL 1 goes, round 1, how do you go into a LAN event and play these teams in the first round. Usually you have a group stage, or you have, maybe just like a winner's bracket and a loser's bracket, so you can come back. You have a little bit of a warm up against maybe some no-name teams, and then you get into the real games. Not so one Frankfurt. It was a 2-day event in Frankfurt in the, what was the arena called? The Commerzbank Arena in Germany. And it was quite a big arena. I was actually really impressed. It wasn't just like some tiny little stadium. It was actually a full-sized arena, so that was pretty cool to see for ESL 1. But what do you expect with a $200,000 tournament? At the same time, the Summit was $25,000 tournaments, and it was on a couch and an apartment room. So you never know what you're going to get with Dota 2. But ESL 1 Frankfurt, $200,000, and it was in a huge arena. They weren't able to fill the arena, but they did get quite an impressive audience gathered there in Germany. And it makes sense, though. Germany's not the easiest place to get to at this time of the year, especially, when you have a large Asian Dota market and a large North American Dota market that's not going to travel to Europe. And especially the North American, we're getting around July 4th weekend for the United States, so our traveling's going to family. We're not going overseas to Europe. That'd be quite the expensive trip, though, right before July 4th, just to go for a weekend to Germany. But I'm sure there's many Europeans who decided to take the train or take a car and just drive over to Frankfurt. It's a lot easier, I think, to navigate around Europe than for to say, if I wanted to go to New York City. That would be quite the trip for me in the United States. The United States is really big, and I think people underestimate it because it's just one country. But Texas alone, where I live in Houston, is basically 2/3 of the size of Europe by itself. Now, that's, of course, if you're only counting the European part of Russia. If you add all of Russia to Europe, even though a lot of it's mostly Asia, then, yeah, I mean, you can make Europe a lot bigger. But I'm not trying to do technicalities. I'm just trying to give you all a size comparison. You can drive for 18 hours and still be in Texas straight from one end to the other. I'm not talking like, just driving in circles. I'm talking about you can start on the east side of Texas and be driving west for 18 hours and still be in it, depending on the exact direction you take. So the United States isn't exactly a small place easy to travel around, but Europe's a lot more condensed, and I think that's really conducive to these big esports events, something that I don't have the opportunity to attend, but you should definitely take advantage of if you're a European. I think that's a great opportunity for you to meet other people that enjoy what you do, network with people if you're involved in esports. That's definitely a great way to do it. Meet people face to face, say what you do, find out things they need, and boom, there you have it. You've suddenly made friends in high places in Dota 2. But let me go ahead and hit the brackets. I talked about these tough brackets. Game 1 of the day was Mousesports versus Invictus Gaming. If you're Mousesports coming into this, and IG's one of the favorites to win the entire thing, what a tough draw for Game 1 early in the morning. You just woke up. You're like, man, it's time for some Dota. Let's drink a little bit of coffee. And who are we playing today? IG. Holy shit. What do you do, guys? What do you do? You lose to them 2-1. But a great showing from Mousesports, putting up a fight. They did not get 2-0'd. And they tried their best, but it was nice because the fact that they can take a game off of IG means that everyone under IG, Mousesports can take more than a game off of. And that is a good sign going into TI4 because IG showed they have what it takes to beat DK, to beat Newbie, to beat EG. Now, I'm not saying they're guaranteed to win. All of those teams can beat each other. But the fact that IG's up here at the first place TI4 level and Mousesports can nip at their heels means Mousesports is in a solid position to come maybe in second, third, or fourth. Maybe not first, but if you place high, you are still bringing home a buttload of money at the end of TI4. Along with that, I think, what was next in line? Was it Alliance or Cloud9, or was it Vici and Fnatic? Either way, I'm just going to go ahead and hit Alliance and Cloud9. For those of you who didn't see it, Alliance 2-0 Cloud9. There's a nice little Sing Sing interview that was released shortly after where Sing Sing talks about the worst game he's ever played. He was very upset about this, but hopefully, the fact that I saw them upset about their performance against Alliance means that they are motivated going into this boot camp. They understand the weakness of their team and they know what they need to work on. That's what I expect as a viewer going into this. Now, Alliance really showing how strong they are in this first round. But going into round 2, who did they play? IG. And IG crushed them. 2-0 victory over Alliance. And this is a good opportunity for Alliance, who traditionally, especially going into TI3, has gone over to Eastern Dota, played in their tournaments, and performed well. This is an opportunity for them to wake up going into TI4. IG is not a sleeping tiger. They are awake, and they are prowling, and they are looking for that 10 million prize pool. So really strong performance from IG, and I think Alliance was slacking a little bit. Maybe they didn't work quite as hard as they needed to, because they did not make it through the semifinals. At the same time, they did make it to the semifinals over Cloud9, and Cloud9 is not the easiest team in the world to play against. They will beat a lot of other Dota teams out there. Vici Gaming versus Fnatic. I think this is one of the most interesting series. Vici Gaming really struggling as of late, and we've kind of been wondering, where does Vici stand going into TI4 and all the rest of these teams? Kind of know where they're standing, how they're doing. It's been a steady progress, and you've kind of kept a clear picture. But Vici comes up against Fnatic. And now, something I really want to point out, this was not the Fnatic you're going to see at TI4 as of right now. And we'll get to that later. Don't worry, guys. I saw that. I saw what happened. And I already covered 2 parts of it, but there was a part 3, and we're going to get to that as well. But this was not the Fnatic that, as of right now, we're going to see at TI4. This is the Fnatic with Excalibur, and I need to be clear about that. But Fnatic, 2-1 victory over Vici Gaming. And the previous era of Vici would have been in the same category as IG, and you would have expected a 2-0 stomp of Fnatic, or maybe a 2-1 victory at most from Fnatic. But Fnatic has changed, and Vici has changed, and now Fnatic's here on top. And not only are they on top, but they went to play against EG, who actually 2-0'd Na'Vi. That is one of the interviews that I really found that I liked. There's a nice interview on Own Gamers that I want to post for you guys, and I'll go ahead and post it over in the chat. There's a nice little link to it if you want to see the video. It will start playing as soon as you get to it, so if you don't want to watch it right now, you're going to have to pause it if you click that link and open it in another tab. But nice video to Dindy, and he straight up at the beginning says that they need some work. They didn't play well. He's not happy with their performance. And not only that, but he sounded motivated. Like, he was talking about things I haven't heard Na'Vi talk about in years. He was talking about working hard at boot camp. And traditionally, the past 2 years, Na'Vi's boot camp has been pretty laid back. Because, hey, we won TI1. We'll just go into the other internationals and do our thing. And that's just how they've been. But they are fully committed now. It sounds like, at least that's the impression I got from Dindy listening to this interview, where, hey, these teams are really stepping up their game, and we're going to have to work hard if we want to perform at this international. So their ESL performance, while lackluster, getting beat out by EG in the first round, that is EG that 2-0'd them. That wasn't somebody else. It wasn't like getting 2-0'd by Mouse Sports, which would have been a huge slap in the face for Natus Venturi. No disrespect intended for Mouse Sports. That's just the way things are. It's EG, who's considered to be one of the top teams right now, contesting for number 1 spot worldwide. And they've got the performances to back it up against DK, against IG kind of, and of course, against LGD and Vici and even Empire, as well as Alliance. So don't look down on Na'Vi too much. I think this was a rude awakening of where they stand right now, but hopefully it serves the purpose of motivational support for them as they go into international. Now, in that interview, he also does mention that Na'Vi has picked up a coach. This is something we haven't heard of before. He didn't say who their coach was, but look for that to be coming out here in the next few days. That's exciting news. If you're a Na'Vi fan, for them to have a coach means they're working hard. And that's not something you traditionally think about when you think of Na'Vi practicing for Dota tournaments. You think of them as, let's just go win tournaments. And they just kind of, do their thing. But the fact that they've got a coach, they're going to have a training regimen, they're going to have a hardcore boot camp. Very exciting if you want to see a good performance from Na'Vi. And so I'm excited for them at TI4. Now, EG, of course, going into the semifinals, beating Na'Vi 2-0, put up this is something I want to talk about. Fnatic did not get 2-0'd by EG. And the Fnatic of yesteryear, that would be 2-0 for the current EG roster. 2-0. That's what you would expect. You wouldn't expect them to take games. Occasionally, they might take a game. But no, this was a 2-1 solid performance from Fnatic. I was really impressed with their showing. And again, this is EG we're talking about. This is a TI4 number 1 spot favorite contender that Fnatic's taking games from. And if you're nipping at the heels of number 1, it means you're up there at the number 2, 3, 4 spot fighting for that. The fact that Fnatic's fighting for that, I don't think we've had a Fnatic lineup that's been able to do that before. Now, this is with Excalibur, and there was some spectacular carry play from Hani, and it makes me wonder, are you going to, perhaps when you get Era back in the roster for TI4, do you rotate him around and try and play with this new carry style Hani and give him a chance to continue and maybe rotate Era into something else that maybe fits the new team style of play? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully Era is able to at least do a little bit of boot capping with him so they can get comfortable with him back in the lineup over Excalibur as they go into TI4, because it would be terrible to see a lackluster performance simply because they haven't been able to practice together. Final game of the day, though. IG, after 2-0ing Alliance, just completely crushing them, goes against EG. Now, EG played some impressive Dota against IG in one of their games. And then the second game was very close, but went for IG. It was the third game that really told the complete fortune. IG 22-0, a perfect game from IG. EG got crushed in that game 3. Now, something to note, EG was not playing what you would traditionally think of an EG lineup. I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the show. EG was running, it really felt more like a Fnatic strat. They were running the dual mid, and it feels like Arteezy just not comfortable with the dual mid role. I've seen him do a lot better. You can put him on any carry mid, but you need to leave him solo for him to really shine. And in this dual role, it felt like he was a lot less effective than he should have been. And at the end of the day, IG just rolled over them. So maybe it was the draft, maybe it was just the execution. You can make arguments for both. But what it definitely was IG knew what they were doing, and they played some spectacular Dota where players were getting away with 100 HP or less constantly the whole game. And I was very impressed by their performance. And you want to talk about a team that's ready for TI4? You're talking about IG. I think they just came off a victory against DK coming into ESL 1, and now they crush EG in the grand finals of ESL 1. That's China's number 1. Are they China's number 1 anymore? Because EG's definitely saying, hey, think about us when you think about number 1 China. And they crushed North America's number 1, who also, through due process, they also crushed Europe's number 1, I guess, and if you don't want to count Empire, because Empire wasn't there at the event. But we had Alliance, we had Na'Vi, and Alliance, I think, is considered very strong right now. IG 2-0'd them, 2-1 DG. So great performance by IG. I'm excited about them for TI4. We're going to see some really good games. Speaking of TI4, though, we do have an update for CIS. They have applied for their 3rd time, and now they have 2 people who can go to TI4. We have Io. His visa has been accepted. And of course, Black doesn't need a visa because he's German. So we gotta get 3 more visas, guys. If we can get 3 more visas, we can get CIS into the wildcard tournament, and they've got, 3 weeks to do it. So good luck, CIS. 3rd time was not the charm for them. A small glimmer of hope, though, with the IO acceptance. That means maybe the others will be as well. So hopefully they do get through into TI4. It'd be terrible to be disqualified from TI4 because you can't get visas. Meanwhile, let's see. I've got one more interview I wanted to talk about. There was a really good interview talking about Cloud9. I talked about Sing Sing mentioning his performance was really lackluster and he felt like it was the worst Dota he had ever played. You know, it's really hard to actually find Sing Sing in a bad mood, but he was visibly upset. I think Eternal Envy was visibly upset as well at the end of it. For those of you who haven't seen, there was a nice little GIF image of Loda actually patting Eternal Envy on the back after his crushing defeat at the hands of Alliance. But Aoi 2000 actually gave a very well-spoken interview about what they needed to improve on and how they felt and going into TI4. And I just want to throw that out to you guys. Again, there's so many interviews out there for ESL right now. I would definitely check a lot of those out because all of these professional players were in one setting. All of the news sites out there, Gosu Gamers, Join Dota, D2P, they took the opportunity to actually speak to these players. They had people on the grounds because a lot of these have European reporters who were at ESL. And because of that, they actually were able to interact firsthand with these players and really get time for interviews. And the players actually gave the interviews. So we have, I think, somebody from at least every team and sometimes multiple people from the teams who you can really hear about. So go find your favorite player. If he was at ESL, he probably gave an interview. But I will throw this over there into the, it says and time equals 15 seconds. I don't know if that's what I want to do, but whatever. There's the link to the actual video, the full interview with Owie from Cloud9. And it's about 12 minutes long, so a little bit longer than the other ones on Join Dota. But well worth the watch if you're interested in Cloud9 and how they're doing. A little bit different news I want to get to. Aero Gaming. We were talking about Aero Gaming just on Friday. Over the weekend, they went into another championship. They played in a, what was this? It was an MSI tournament. I don't know what it was called other than MSI Play. I think that's all it was called, was MSI Play. And it was the 28th and 29th. So, of course, nobody watched it because we were all watching ESL. But they did have a tournament, and they played again against Invasion, where they 3-0'd them. So they are really showing their strength, getting ready for TI4. Now, at the same time, Orange versus Invasion was the finals of the D2M League Grand Finals. Arrow and Titan, both in TI4, didn't even make it to the Grand Finals. So really telling, as you look back over the games, Arrow's actually shaped up over the past 2 days. They have won 2 Grand Finals against a team that previously beat them out of a tournament. So they've come back, they figured out what their weaknesses are, and it looks like they're still preparing, getting ready for TI4. Definite marked improvement here, though, when you see results from previous tournaments where you have them losing to teams, and now you have them not just winning, but shutting out teams consistently. That's now what? 5 games in a row? Or is that 6 games in a row that Arrow has taken from Invasion without losing a single one? So great job, Arrow, getting into TI4 spirit. Hopefully we see them coming in to the USA all in high spirits and put up a big show at TI4. You definitely want all of these teams to perform. I think last year we saw MUFC. Was it last year? It was TI3, I think. MUFC 0-15, never forget. We don't want that. Nobody wants to see that in a Dota team. You don't want to go to TI4 and lose every single game you play. That is just awful. You need to take games from somebody. You need to be in the running to actually play some real Dota here. And I expect every single one of these teams to at least take games from somebody else in the pool. There are certainly teams that have the capability of taking games from each other. Now, it is, again, possible to go 0-15 again. Actually, I think it's going to be even more than, what is it, 0... It would be 0, yeah, it would be 0-15 again. It's 16 teams again for TI4, I think. Let me go ahead and double check. Dota2.com, the international. Go ahead and click on that and make sure it's 16 teams. We got the invited teams, we got the qualified winners. So that should be, let's see, let me count actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then we got 4 qualifiers. That makes 15. And then we will have 1 wild card. So that will be 16. So yeah, 16 teams again in TI4. And so it is possible to go 0-15 again because you, of course, are one of those 16 teams. And you can't lose to yourself. As much as some people might try, there will be no losing to themselves in TI4. Now, going into TI4, there's a couple things I wanted to mention. 1, Steam Summer Sale. Big numbers coming out from the Steam Summer Sale. 8 million concurrent peak Steam users during the Steam Summer Sale. Over 8 million people using Steam at the same time. The current number right now is 5.4 million, but we're peaking at 8 million people on Steam. Now, of this 8 million people, 775,000 people are on Dota 2 at their peak times. During average times, it's averaging right around 350. But what's important about this is last year, around the same time, 350 was the new high peak of Dota 2. Now, with 350,000 concurrent viewers or concurrent players in Dota 2, we pulled in an audience of over 1 million viewers across all systems. That's in-game, that's across Twitch, and I think there was another platform. It was Gamify, I think, is the Chinese platform that people were watching the international on. But multi-platform, of course, that's not everything. There was people watching through YouTube, and there's various, I'll call unofficial streams that weren't counted. But just through the official streams and the game client and Gamify, we crossed 1 million peak concurrent viewers of TI3. This year, we have twice the players in the game, over twice actually, 775,000 peak, which is almost 1 million people by itself. Assuming every single one of those watched TI4, then right away we've almost cleared 3/4 of what we hit last year. Now you throw in a Twitch audience, a lot of people who maybe don't play Dota 2 but are going to be exposed to it through Twitch TV because it's going to be the big event on Twitch at the time. There's a lot of people who just watch whatever the big event is at the time, whether it be League of Legends, whether it be Minecraft, whether it be some guy speed running for charities. I think we saw like a 400-hour marathon on Twitch TV recently from somebody who's like, oh yeah, every 3 subscribers adds an hour, and everybody subscribed to him, and you're like, holy crap, you're never gonna stop streaming. But along with all these viewers, we've got 8 million people through TI4 to reach on the Steam client. 8 million possible Dota players, because Dota 2 is free. If you've already got Steam, if you're one of those 8 million people and you don't have Dota 2, you are a potential new Dota 2 player, because it's already there, ready to go on your computer. All you have to do is double click it, click play, and you're good to go. Very large viewer base to grow into. Along with that, that's 775,000 out of that 8 million. I mean, that's basically 1/8 of the entire Steam population is playing Dota. Next in line after that was Counter-Strike Go at 165,000. And then you cut that in half, 78,000 are playing Team Fortress 2. And then it's just a bunch of extraneous games at that point, 30,000 here, 20,000 there, maybe a 5,000 or 10,000 on various games just all across Dota 2. But I mean, all across Steam, not across Dota 2. We don't play Counter-Strike Go inside Dota 2 client. Unfortunately, that is not a mini game for while you are queuing. That would be great though, wouldn't it? If you could it would pop you into like a little CS:GO game or something while you were queuing, and then it would just disconnect you from the server when you were done. So you'd be in these servers full of Dota 2 queuing players all shooting each other. And then you get into games and just poof, disappear. Counter-Strike Go is really good like that. They can just join a server and then leave it at a whim. In deathmatch modes, at least. I think the little team ones, you gotta wait for the next round. So it's a little bit different, but if it's just a deathmatch, then, I mean, you can just blast people. What if all random deathmatch was a waiting mode for while you were queuing? It just throws you in with maybe 20 random people who are all queuing for Dota games. Just throws you in. Hey, you want to play some all random deathmatch while you wait? And then you go in there and just blast some people until it gets time for your queue. And it just keeps a few all random deathmatch servers full. Maybe that's something to think about, Valve. Just an idea off the top of my head. Certainly could pass the time instead of just sitting there watching a clock or browsing in another window like I ultimately end up doing. Most of the time I'm sitting there looking at another monitor while I'm just browsing across the wide world of the internet. And then suddenly I get queued or you miss it and you're like, dang it, now I've got to wait 5 minutes to queue again. But minigames Dota 2, certainly a possibility. But the point is, Dota 2, almost 1 million people, nobody else is even close to that. The next in line is under 200,000 peak, and that's Counter-Strike Go. And everyone after that is half that or less, half that or half that again. Dota 2 is just blowing all the games on Steam out of the water, and I feel like it's only going to grow. I'm waiting, after TI4, I feel like we will probably hit 1 million peak. 1 million peak concurrent users on Dota 2. That's 225,000 more random pub stars joining into your lobbies telling you, man, you don't know anything about Dota 2 and I know everything and I am here to crush you. And you're like, holy crap, dude, how long have you played? 2 weeks, but I used to be a professional CSGO player. And it's like, oh. And you picked very high, didn't you? Yeah, because I have lots of competitive experience. Okay, where do we go? Where do you go explaining to competitive FPS players that Dota 2 is not an FPS and your skills do not translate into Dota 2? But they'll find out the hard way as they get crushed repeatedly in pubs after picking very high. They will go right back down to that low bracket where they belong. So there you have it, guys. A lot of people ready to watch TI4 and a lot of people ready to play Dota 2. Great for the scene. Now, something I've kind of not wanted to get to, but something I need to talk about. This did come out on Friday, but it wasn't out by the time I started my new show because I was refreshing the page waiting for comment from Fnatic. And they did release closing words, and I think they went about this the wrong way. I think the appropriate way for dealing with this would be to apologize to everybody for the miscommunications, because what Fnatic did on day one is they put out a press release that basically said Valve is bad and we just want to protect Era's health. And they made everyone so mad at Valve. And the problem with that, at that point, Fnatic, you may think you're doing what's best for your team, but what you've just done is attacked every single Dota 2 player out there. When you try and make Valve look bad, you're attacking me as an individual player who supports Dota 2 and supports Valve. And that's not cool as an organization. Now, I'm not saying you can't criticize an organization, but there's a difference between criticizing somebody and then trying to just set them up. What do you even call this? A smear article is what I'll call it from Fnatic. That's what I consider their first article. Now, how Valve handled this after Fnatic said, hey, this is what's wrong with Era and this is what Valve's doing to us, how Valve handled it was entirely appropriate. They released all the documents. They said, this is what happened. Here's transparency. Everybody, you guys just decide. Here's all the email documentation. Great plays by them. They are very experienced, and you have to be if you're a multi-billion-dollar organization like Valve standing behind Steam. Now, Fnatic, I mentioned I didn't like how they responded to this. A couple of key issues that I really don't like in this Fnatic article that I'm going to go ahead and touch on. So we'll start out with their intro. Just a few hours ago, Valve made a statement public in which they presented their version of the case to the public. While we greatly value transparency, we want to present facts that were left out from Valve's original statement here. And they link emails. Now, it's interesting they link emails, but all they did was read the blog. I guess they didn't read it all the way through, where Valve actually enclosed a little text document, which I gave to you guys on Friday, I believe, that had every single email in it. That's right there in that little Valve's original statement here, dodging email. So right away, they try and make it look like Valve's being shady when Valve said, this is what we think's relevant, and here's everything if you just want to read everything. I mean, it's a blog post. It wasn't a full data dump. The data dump was in the text file. What do you do in a blog post? You don't sit there and lay out every word. You try and give somebody a quick read so they can get an idea. And they posted some relevant emails, and I think they covered the good ones. And I went through and read of course, every email in the text document. But right off the bat, this is really confusing for me because Era's writing an email and about a misunderstanding that needs to be clarified, that he had not seen his doctor more than once at that time, and basically, I gave Valve wrong information. It was irrational of me. I had tunnel vision on TI4. I was upset. I was depressed. He makes a lot of excuses, but at the same time, it makes me wonder. It's like, is this pressured from Fnatic? You know, it's really hard to tell at this point in the game. Is this a pressured email? And I'm not going to judge that. Let's assume Era's being sincere. But from Valve's standpoint, when you get an email saying the player feels threatened by his organization, which is essentially what the first email Era sent, anything after that is suspect. And as an organization, you have to take a stand. And Valve is very smart by not wavering in their stance, I think. They made their decision. Whether it's right or not, they made it on the facts at hand. When Era said he was feeling pressured by his organization, basically being forced out, muscled out in that first email, Valve said, you know what? We have to protect a player's integrity as a player that was invited to TI4, and we did not invite Fnatic, we invited Era, so we're going to take a stand to protect him. And once Valve's taken that stand, you're in a very difficult position to decide either way. And a lot of times, even in professional sports games, people do this all the time. When you make a ruling on the field, when there's a replay capability, if it's not innately obvious what the truth is, so if you look at the replay and you can't fully tell whether the ruling was false or not, if you're going back over a ruling that was called on the field, you stand by the original ruling. And I think that's what Valve is doing here. They had an original based on the information at hand, and now it's become so shady and muddied up in the water because we have multiple emails from Era now where it's hard to even tell what's right anymore. And Valve is just going to stand by their original argument. Now, whether they choose to change this in the future or not, I don't know, but it seems like Era is going to be playing at TI4 at this point. And Era, of course, did apologize for all of this. Which I think if he did just write a spontaneous email because he was upset, which I would understand, I could understand somebody doing that, then his apology, greatly appreciated. Good job, Era. At the same time, is this a forced email from Fnatic? I don't know. And that's what makes it so unclear. And that's why Valve has to take a stance like they're doing. On top of that, this is something I actually don't like about Fnatic's blog post. Let me find the exact statement right here. The decision to publicly address the issue that the team has been facing of late stems from their strong belief that the Dota 2 community deserves to know what is going on in the team regarding the absence of our long-serving member Dota Adrian Era Kriezu. Actually, the first line right here is, Valve's response has left us somewhat saddened and disappointed about the past 24-hour debacle. I did use the word disappointed above, and I will, in the remainder of this statement, address why we all feel that the blog post posted by Valve about this didn't explain the entire story. Where's the part that I'm looking for? There's some really important information left out that shifts the spotlight away from an unethical, broken rulebook and a player with a documented illness to us as a team not showing us support to a player in need. I'm trying to find it. It might be down here at the end. This is a really long blog post that I've got on Fnatic's site. You can go to fnatic.com to read the whole thing. Let me scroll down after. I think it might be after the emails that they posted where they... the nature of the illness. This is a really long article. Oh, man. Broken confidentiality. Here we go. I found the part I was looking for. Broken confidentiality. This is the part I don't like about Fnatic's response. We understand it was with Era's permission that we released the course of events to the community. We agreed with Valve that emails shared were to be kept confidential, not to hide anything, but rather to protect all of the emotionally charged parties present. It is extremely saddening that confidential information shared between two parties was laid out in the public eye. Now that right there, Valve did not make this public. That needs to be very clear to anybody going into this. Fnatic wrote day one article. They tried to smear Valve on a public trial. And when you open a trial to the public, all of your dirty laundry gets to be seen. That's on you, Fnatic. That is on you as an organization. That is not on Valve. And I am extremely disappointed when an organization comes out and tries to repeatedly smear an organization like Valve, who is 100% supporting the game that I love so much in Dota 2. And that's what I mentioned. I don't mind criticism of Valve. If you have proper criticism of Valve, go ahead. Let's make them a stronger company. But when you try and smear them like this, then you're smearing me as a player who supports Valve. You are attacking every single one of those 775,000 Dota 2 players. You are no longer attacking an organization. This is unfounded, and it's just flat out rude from Fnatic to behave in this way. It's childish. This is playground environment from what's supposed to be a professional organization, and that is not good in the least. Fnatic did no service to themselves with this response. I really liked Era's email. I thought that was appropriate. Hey, guys, I'm sorry. I made a big misunderstanding, and I'm sorry. Let's try and clear it up maybe in the future. Otherwise, I'll play at TI4. But this broken confidentiality, when you tried to smear Valve in the public light, that's just wrong. That is absolutely wrong, Fnatic. And as an organization, I lost a lot of respect for them over this because I didn't expect this from this. They've generally been one of the better respected organizations. They've stood by their players. They've been pleasant to deal with. They've always been professional in how they dealt with tournaments, handling and managing different tournaments and events. If you had Fnatic in charge, mainly the manager for Fnatic's Dota team, one of the probably the most well-respected Dota managers out there, alongside the manager of EG. This guy gets stuff done and he does it professionally. And then you have the organization coming out like this. Also, if you didn't notice them, there were several tweets that they were just firing at Valve. And it's like, you're behaving like children. And you're supposed to be an organization. Make a proper press release. Apologize to the public that the water is muddy. And let's work together to clear it up. But don't sit there and try and just keep flaming Valve. Because Valve didn't make this issue. You guys did when you improperly handled how to replace Era. You don't go to a guy that's earned TI4 and kick him off the team. That has to be something he wants. And the fact that he didn't want it the first time they talked to him means they mismanaged it right from the start. Or he would have never written that first email at Valve. If he had been in the proper mood before that first email, because Fnatic handled it properly at the beginning, Valve would never have to deal with this. Fnatic would never have to deal with this. This mess is on them, and they need to focus on themselves. This is like the pub attitude that you hear coming out of your traditional pub player in Dota 2, and everything's everyone else's fault. But until you look at yourself and correct yourself, you can't improve. And Fnatic has set themselves a big roadblock by focusing on Valve and saying it's Valve's fault. This is your fault, Fnatic. And I hope you can clean it up, because it's bad for esports going into this. It muddies Valve, it muddies you. This is a stain on everyone's reputation, and it shouldn't be. There should be nothing wrong here. But people are going to get misinformation about it. They're going to jump to conclusions, either against Fnatic or against Valve. Either one. You can come to a bad conclusion about both organizations through this, and really we just need to be focusing on how to make sure Era can play safely, or if he can't play, we could have cleaned up the situation afterwards. But putting Era in a situation where he's basically feeling fired from the team is not a way to start the situation out right. And I think hopefully Fnatic's learned this now, and honestly, I don't know if Valve should change their stance at this point. Because I really just think there's no way to know the truth anymore. It's always he said, she said at this point in the game. And so what do? You really just have to pick a side and go for it. And they've picked the side of Era. They've said, we want Era to play. We invited Era, and he told us his doctor okayed him. That's enough for us. Era, come to TI4. And I have to respect that. Whether it's right or wrong, whether you agree or disagree with it, I respect that Valve has made a decision. All they did was release the emails and said, you guys just, here's what's going on. And they have refrained from getting down into the mudslinging. So props to Valve, a little bit lost respect for Fnatic. And hopefully over the months, we can see the organization recover from this. Because it is going to be something that's going to be brooding. And it's really, I think you have to think it has to have soiled the friendships between Era and the rest of Fnatic, and these guys are known for being friends for so long. But how do you get through something like this? This is big. And lesser things have torn teams apart, and now you have something like this hanging over their heads. So, not a fun place to be if you're on the Fnatic organization or if you're on the Fnatic team, but I really hope, I sincerely hope they're able to sort this out, because it's not good for us as Dota 2 players, as the Dota 2 community. It's not good for Fnatic, and it's not good for Valve. It's not good for anybody to have this kind of situation. And Fnatic needs to realize that the onus is on them to straighten it up. It's not Valve's fault that they're in the situation they're in. So there you have it, guys. We will be coming to a close here for episode 6 of FletchDota, June 30th, 2014, ending on a bit of a somber note, and I didn't intend to do that. But we have gotten to just about an hour, and I don't want to run too long for the show. So we'll be stopping there, calling it a night. I think we covered a great deal of happy information. I just covered it all at the beginning, and maybe that was a mistake. Maybe I should hit Fnatic at the beginning if I'm going to hit somber topics like that. Something to consider for next time. But episode 6 of FletchDota completely finished. We will be going into the after party of my stream where I do play Dota and chat with you guys, the viewers, as best as I can while I'm playing a Dota game. I'm pretty good at glancing at the chat pretty consistently, so I will be talking to you guys quite a bit. If you're looking to interact with me after the show, if you have comments, concerns, and you want instant feedback, that's the way to do that. Of course, there are always other ways to get in contact with me. Twitter.com/FletchDota. That's my Twitter handle. You can tweet at me. I do read my notifications. I got a few tweets this morning after handling a Dota tournament. I have been casting the GG League tournament, which you might see on joindota.com listed over at the sidebar, or Gosu Gamers. I believe it's on both sites, as well as a few other sites like the betting sites. So you will find me casting those as the primary English stream. I'm casting a game tomorrow. I think it's X Game KZ I'm casting tomorrow. 1700 Central European time, which ends up being about 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. So early morning Dota for me, afternoon Dota for Europeans. Either way, it'll be good Dota. X Game KZ. If you want to come watch some tier 2 European teams, it's worth the watch. You can catch out my YouTube for all the past episodes. I am uploading those to YouTube. I was a little slow with episode 4 and 5, but I've had a very busy weekend and a very busy last week. So I have got those uploaded to YouTube. This one will be up tonight after I turn off the stream. I'll highlight it and upload it straight away. So it will be on YouTube right off the bat. And maybe I can sort out my YouTube as well. On top of that, you can also email me, masterfletch@gmail.com. Questions, comments, concerns, whatever you want to do. And anything else you can do. You can always follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/masterfletch, where you're watching me now live. Or if you're watching me on YouTube, you can check it out if you want to catch the live broadcast and actually interact with me some in the chat, like a few people are right now. So there you have it, guys. That's the end of episode 6, and I hope to see y'all next time.